The white mink coat hit me in the chest with enough force to knock the wind out of me before I could even raise my hands. It was heavy, reeking of cold city air, stale champagne, and that distinct, sharp metallic scent of new money that hasn't learned manners yet. My fingers instinctively dug into the fur, catching it before it hit the dirty floor, because instinct is a hard thing to kill, even when your soul feels like it's been put through a wood chipper. "Check my coat, sweetie," the woman sneered, already turning her back to me. "And try not to drop a hanger this time. If you ruin the lining, I'll have the cost deducted from your whatever it is you earn. Tips? Peanuts?" I didn't say a word. I just stood there, holding a fur coat worth more than my car, staring at the back of Claudia Haynes's head. Before we dive deeper into exactly how I dismantled this woman's life brick by gilded brick, let me know in the comments, what city or country are you watching this from? I tagged the coat with exaggerated care. Ticket number 666. If Claudia noticed the irony, she was too busy checking her teeth for kale or cocaine in the reflection of the darkened DJ booth window. I watched her sashay toward the VIP section, gliding like she was on a conveyor belt made of other people's money. In the ecosystem of Club Sanctum, Claudia was an apex predator. I was Krill. But the thing about Krill is that they have a way of clogging the engines if there are enough of them, or if just one of them is smart enough to know where the intake valve is. My office, if you could call it that, was the Coat Check Lounge at 2 a.m. It was a cocktail of desperation, spilled Grey Goose, and perfume that costs $400 an ounce, but still smells like a funeral home cover-up. I was standing behind the velvet rope, wearing a black uniform that fit a little too well, designed to make me look like furniture with a pulse. The bass from the main floor was vibrating through the soles of my shoes, cheap, non-slip rubber soles from Walmart, not the red-bottomed Louboutins I used to wear when I actually owned a place like this. That's the thing about nightlife. It remembers your face, but it forgets your name the second your credit limit drops. 2 years ago, I wasn't holding coats. I was the one throwing them. I owned the Velvet Room, a sanctuary of obsidian glass and crushed velvet just 3 blocks down the street. It was sharper, darker, cooler. We didn't let people like Claudia in because they ruined the vibe. They treated the staff like NPCs in their personal video game. I had a strict no assholes policy, and Claudia Haynes was the patron saint of that category. I remember the first time I denied her entry at the Velvet Room. It was the moment that sealed my fate, though I didn't know it then. She had looked at me like I had spoken in tongues. "Do you know who my husband is?" she had hissed, her face turning a blotchy shade of indignity under the streetlights. "I don't care if your husband is Jesus Christ in a Yeezy collab," I had told her, my voice calm and authoritative. "You're not on the list." That was my mistake. Not the denial. That was a pleasure, but underestimating how much free time a bored trophy wife with a vindictive streak has. Now, I stood in the shadows of Club Sanctum, watching her hold court. She was sitting on a tufted leather banquette that I knew for a fact hadn't been decleaned since 2019. She was snapping her fingers at a waitress, a girl named Sarah, who was putting herself through law school and didn't deserve to be treated like a servant in a Victorian melodrama. "More ice," Claudia barked, her voice cutting through the thumping house music. "And tell the bartender this vodka tastes like tap water." I want the bottle opened in front of me. I adjusted my earpiece, the plastic digging into my ear canal. "Sarah," I murmured into the mic, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Just bring her the bucket. Don't engage. She's looking for a fight to spice up her Tuesday." Sarah looked over at me from the floor, her eyes wide and grateful. I gave her a microscopic nod. That's what I was now, the shadow manager, the ghost in the machine. The management at Club Sanctum kept me around because I knew where the bodies were buried literally, in terms of plumbing disasters and metaphorically, regarding the liquor license loopholes. They thought I was broken. They thought I was just happy to have a paycheck after my world imploded. They didn't know I was taking notes. Claudia laughed, a sound like glass shattering in a dishwasher. She was leaning into a guy who definitely wasn't her husband, Elliot. He was young, probably a personal trainer or a brand ambassador for a tequila company, with hair so gelled it could withstand a hurricane. She ran a manicured hand down his arm, right in the middle of the club, under the strobe lights. God, service here has gone downhill, she announced loudly, making sure her voice carried to my station. It's just so pedestrian. Ever since they started hiring the refugees from that failed club down the street. She meant me. She knew I could hear her. It was part of the ritual. She needed to remind me every single week that she had won and I had lost. I looked down at the fur coat in my hands. It was soft, expensive, and completely vulnerable. For a second, I let myself imagine taking a pair of shears to the lining. Just a small snip, a loose thread that would unravel the whole structure over time. But that was petty. That was amateur hour. I wasn't interested in ruining a coat. I was interested in ruining the person wearing it. I hung the coat up with exaggerated care, smoothing the bristles. Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetie, I whispered to the empty cloakroom. The bass dropped again, shaking the floorboards. I checked my watch. It was 2:15 a.m. In exactly 4 hours, the Tokyo markets would open, and a very specific shell company I'd registered in the Cayman Islands was going to trigger a purchase order that would go unnoticed by everyone except the people looking for it. Claudia thought this was just another night of her reign. She didn't realize she was dancing on a trapdoor, and I was just waiting to oil the hinges. To understand the level of hate fueling me, you have to understand what they took from me. I didn't lose my club because of bad business. I didn't lose it because of the economy or COVID or bad vodka. I lost it because I bruised a narcissist's ego. She decided to burn my life down as a hobby. After the night I denied Claudia entry, the whisper started. It wasn't anything loud. That's not how women like Claudia fight. They don't throw punches, they poison the well. It started with a blind item in a local luxury lifestyle blog, one that Claudia happened to be a major advertiser for. Asterisk, which downtown hotspot is actually a front for interstate laundering. Hint. It rhymes with helmet gloom. Asterisk. Subtle? No. Effective? Devastatingly. Then came the concerns whispered at charity galas. Elliot Haynes, the CEO of Sphere and Claudia's husband, suddenly pulled his company's corporate account from my venue. That was $50,000 a year in guaranteed revenue gone overnight. When I called his assistant to ask why, I was told, Mr. Haynes prefers venues that align with his family's values. Values. The man made his fortune data mining teenagers, but sure, let's talk about values. The death blow came a month later. I was in negotiations for a massive expansion loan. My investors were skittish but on board. Then, the health inspector showed up. Not for a routine check, but for a targeted raid based on an anonymous tip about rat infestations and sewage leaks. There were no rats. There were no leaks. My kitchen was cleaner than an operating room. But the inspector, a sweaty guy who wouldn't look me in the eye, shut us down for 72 hours, pending investigation. 72 hours is an eternity in nightlife. The closed by health department sticker on the door is a scarlet letter you never scrub off. My investors pulled out the next morning. One of them, a guy I'd known for 10 years, told me off the record, "Vanessa, we love you, but the word is out. You're radioactive. The Haynes family is telling everyone you're under federal investigation. We can't be near that." I stood in the middle of my empty, beautiful club, watching the dust motes dance in the emergency lighting. I had $200 in my business account and a mountain of debt. I lost the lease. I lost the club. I lost my house. I remember seeing Claudia a week after the foreclosure. I was leaving the bank, looking like hell. She was walking out of a boutique next door. She saw me. She stopped. She didn't say anything nasty. She just smiled, a small, tight, satisfied smile. She gave a little wave, like she was shooing a fly, and got into her Porsche. That wave broke something in me. It snapped the part of my brain that believed in karma, or justice, or taking the high road. The high road is for people who have a car. I was walking, so I decided to take the low road, the sewer road, the road that runs right underneath their perfectly manicured lawns. That's when I went dark. I dyed my signature blonde hair a nondescript brown. I stopped wearing makeup. I bought clothes at Walmart. I applied for a job at Club Sanctum, the very place Claudia and Elliot had adopted as their new playground. The interview was pathetic. Gary, the manager, looked at my resume, which I had heavily redacted, leaving out the ownership part and just listing bar manager, and hired me on the spot because I was willing to work holidays. "You look familiar," he had said, squinting at me under the fluorescent office lights. "I just have one of those faces," I lied, keeping my eyes downcast. "I used to work at an Applebee's in the suburbs." "Right," he said, losing interest immediately. "Don't steal the towels. For 2 years, I have been invisible. I have fetched coats. I have mopped up vomit. I have listened to Claudia tell her friends how she single-handedly cleaned up the city's nightlife by getting rid of that trashy place down the street. She confessed her crime to me a dozen times, thinking I was just a faceless servant. We had to call in so many favors to get that inspector out there," she giggled once, 3 martinis deep, talking to a friend in the bathroom while I restocked the paper towels. "But God, it was worth it. Did you see her face? She looked like she was going to cry. Poor thing. Some people just aren't built for business." I was in the stall next to them, holding a roll of toilet paper so tight the cardboard core collapsed in my fist. Not built for business. That phrase echoed in my head every night as I ate ramen in my studio apartment. She was right. I wasn't built for her kind of business. Her business was influence, gossip, and daddy's money. My business was operations, margins, logistics, and vengeance. I started saving every tip. I reconnected with 2 of my old investors, the ones who had been burned when the Velvet Room went under. The ones who hated Claudia Haynes because he had screwed them on a separate tech deal. They were angry rich men, and there is no more powerful resource on earth than an angry rich man looking to settle a score. I pitched them a plan. "We don't buy a club," I told them. "Sitting in a dark diner at 4 a.m., we buy the dirt it sits on. We buy the debt. We buy the distribution rights for the alcohol. We surround them." One investor raised an eyebrow. "And then?" I took a sip of lukewarm coffee. "And then I evict them from their own lives." Back in the present, the flashback faded as the heavy thud of footsteps approached the coat check. It was Elliot. If Claudia was the knife, Elliot was the numbness that followed the cut. He didn't yell, didn't make scenes. He simply didn't perceive you as a human being. He looked through me like I was a smudge on a window pane. He came in about an hour after Claudia, wearing a suit that cost more than my entire liquidation settlement. He bypassed the line, bypassed security, and walked straight to the VIP section. As he passed the coat check, he handed me his umbrella. It was wet. He didn't hand it to me. He released it in the airspace roughly adjacent to my body, assuming I would manifest the physics required to catch it. I caught it. "Dry it," he said. Not a request. A command code input into a machine. "Right away, Mr. Haynes," I said, my voice devoid of inflection. He paused just for a fraction of a second, squinting at me in the dim light. "Do I know you?" My heart did a slow, cold thud against my ribs. This was the danger zone. "I don't think so, sir. I'm just staff." "Right," he said, dismissing the thought before it could fully form. "You have the same eyes as a woman who used to run a dump downtown." "Never mind. She's probably in rehab." He walked away without looking back. I stood there holding his wet umbrella, dripping water onto my cheap shoes. A dump. My club had been Architectural Digest material. My club had been a sanctuary. I took the umbrella to the back room. I didn't dry it. I opened it and left it in the utility sink to soak. Then I pulled out my phone. They were upstairs playing Masters of the Universe. I was downstairs playing 4D chess. I wasn't just scrolling Instagram. I was logged into a private server accessing the county clerk's real estate filings. You see, Club Sanctum wasn't owned by a person. It was owned by a holding company called Nightlife Ventures, which was owned by a larger conglomerate, which was leveraged to the hilt by a private equity firm that was currently panicking about its quarterly returns. I knew this because I had spent the last 2 years doing nothing but reading financial disclosures. While Claudia was reading gossip blogs, I was reading balance sheets. I saw the cracks before anyone else. Nightlife Ventures was hemorrhaging money. They had overexpanded into Vegas right before the market dipped. They were looking to liquidate assets to stop the bleeding. Club Sanctum was their crown jewel, but it was a jewel in a heavy, sinking crown. I swiped through the PDF on my screen. There it was, a notice of intent to sell commercial assets. It hadn't been publicized yet. It was buried in a bundle of documents meant for shareholders. I switched apps to a secure messaging platform. I typed 3 words to a contact saved as Ghost Investor. * green light. Proceed. *. The reply came 3 seconds later, pulsating on my screen like a heartbeat. * funding secured. Initial offer drafted. Do we want the brand name? *. I stopped. I looked up at the ceiling, listening to the thumping of the party above. I could hear Claudia's shrill laugh piercing through the bass. They were dancing on my ceiling. Soon, I would be the one pulling the floor out. I typed back, no. Just the building, the land, and the liquor license. Burn the brand, *. The humiliation wasn't a deterrent anymore. It was fuel. High-octane, premium unleaded hate. And I had a full tank. I put the phone away and walked back out to the counter just as Claudia appeared again. She was hanging off the arm of the gelled-haired boy, pointing a manicured finger at my feet. "Look," she shrieked, grabbing Elliot's arm as he approached her. "I told you. Look at her shoes. Are those orthopedic?" "Oh my God, Elliot. It's like a nursing home caught fire, and they wandered in here." The group around her laughed. It was a sycophantic, ugly sound. I looked down at my black, sensible, non-slip work shoes. They were ugly. They were practical. They kept me standing for 10-hour shifts while I plotted their destruction. "Comfort is key when you work for a living, Mrs. Haynes," I said. I didn't shout. I just projected using that bar owner voice that cuts through bass. The laughter faltered for a second. Claudia's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, invading my personal space, smelling of vodka and malice. "Excuse me," she hissed. "Did the furniture just speak?" I looked her dead in the eye. I said, "These shoes have good traction." "Which is important. You never know when the floor is going to get slippery." "Is that a threat?" she scoffed. "It's a safety tip," I said, picking up a bus tub filled with their empty, wasted champagne glasses. Floors change. Management changes. Everything is slippery eventually. Claudia turned to Gary, the general manager who had just rushed over, sweating profusely. "Gary, fire this Grim Reaper right now." Gary, a man with the spine of a chocolate eclair, looked at me nervously. He knew I ran the inventory better than he did. He knew I covered his ass when the till was short. "Claudia, please," Gary wheezed. "Vanessa is reliable. It's a busy night." "I don't care," she hissed. "She brings down the property value just by existing." "I'll go check the stock in the basement," I said to Gary, diffusing the situation before he had to make a choice he would regret. I didn't wait for permission. I turned my back on her, the ultimate sin, and walked away. As I descended the stairs into the darkness of the stockroom, I could hear her screaming about disrespect. Let her scream. Let her enjoy her voice while she still has a platform. Because the wire transfer was processing. The gears were turning. And when I came back up those stairs, the ground beneath her feet wouldn't belong to her anymore. The game was on. And I wasn't playing for points. I was playing for keeps. I pulled my phone out again, the blue light illuminating the concrete dust floating in the stagnant air of the stockroom. My thumb hovered over the screen, my heart hammering a rhythm that had nothing to do with the bass thumping through the ceiling boards above. A notification bubbled up. It was from a contact saved simply as Ghost Investor. * funding secured. Initial offer drafted. Do we want the brand name? *. I stared at the words, the white text on the black background looking like the most beautiful poetry I'd ever read. I typed back, my fingers moving with a precision that felt surgical. * no. Just the building, the land, and the liquor license. Burn the brand. *. I looked up at the ceiling, listening to the muffled roar of the party 2 floors up. They were dancing on my ceiling. Claudia was probably screeching for more vodka, and Elliot was likely explaining to some bored 20-something why crypto was the future of feudalism. They were dancing on a trapdoor, and I had just ordered the oil for the hinges. The humiliation wasn't a deterrent anymore. It was fuel. High-octane, premium unleaded hate. And I had a full tank. You need to understand something. I didn't lose my previous club, the Velvet Room, because of bad business. I didn't lose it because of the economy or COVID or because people stopped drinking overpriced martinis. I lost it because I bruised a narcissist's ego. She decided to burn my life down as a hobby, something to do between Pilates and brunch. 2 years ago, the Velvet Room was the heartbeat of the city. I had built it from a rotted-out warehouse into a sanctuary of obsidian glass and crushed velvet. It was my child. I had mortgaged my house, my car, and my sanity to build it. It was sophisticated, dark, and exclusive. We curated the vibe with an iron fist. After the night, I denied Claudia entry because she was drunk, disorderly, and frankly, bad for the atmosphere. The whispers started. It wasn't anything loud. That's not how women like Claudia fight. They don't throw punches. They poison the well. It started with a blind item in a local luxury lifestyle blog, one that Claudia happened to be a major advertiser for. Asterisk, which downtown hotspot is actually a front for interstate laundering. Hint. It rhymes with helmet gloom. Asterisk. Subtle? No. Effective? Devastatingly. Then came the concerns whispered at charity galas. Claudia Haynes suddenly pulled his company's corporate account. That was $50,000 a year in guaranteed revenue, gone overnight. I called his assistant to ask why. I was told, in a voice dripping with synthetic sympathy, that Mr. Haynes prefers venues that align with his family's values. Values. The man made his fortune data mining teenagers to sell them anxiety medication, but sure, let's talk about values. The death blow came a month later. I was in negotiations for a massive expansion loan. My investors were skittish but on board. Then the health inspector showed up. Not for a routine check, but a targeted raid based on an anonymous tip about rat infestations and sewage leaks. There were no rats. There were no leaks. My kitchen was cleaner than an operating room. But the inspector, a sweaty guy who wouldn't look me in the eye, shut us down for 72 hours pending an investigation. 72 hours is an eternity in nightlife. The closed by health department sticker on the door is a scarlet letter you never scrub off. The investors pulled out the next morning. One of them, a guy I'd known for 10 years, told me off the record, "Vanessa, we love you, but the word is out. You're radioactive. The Haynes family is telling everyone you're under federal investigation. We can't be near that." I stood in the middle of my empty, beautiful club, watching the dust motes dance in the emergency lighting. I had $200 in my business account and a mountain of debt. I lost the lease. I lost the club. I lost the house. I remember seeing Claudia a week after the foreclosure. I was leaving the bank, looking like hell, swollen eyes, hair in a messy bun, wearing sweatpants because buttons felt like too much effort. She was walking out of a boutique next door. She saw me. She stopped. She didn't say anything nasty. She just smiled, a small, tight, satisfied smile. She gave a little wave, like she was shooing a fly, and got into her Porsche. That wave broke something in me. It snapped the part of my brain that believed in karma, or justice, or taking the high road. The high road is for people who have a car. I was walking, so I decided to take the low road, the sewer road, the road that runs right underneath their perfectly manicured lawns. That's when I went dark. I dyed my hair from its signature blonde to a nondescript, mousy brown. I stopped wearing makeup. I bought clothes at Walmart that were 2 sizes too big. I applied for a job at Club Sanctum, the very place Claudia and Elliot had adopted as their new playground. The interview was pathetic. Gary, the manager, looked at my resume, which I had heavily redacted, leaving out the ownership part and just listing bar manager, and hired me on the spot because I was willing to work holidays. "You look familiar," he had said, squinting at me under the fluorescent office lights. "I just have one of those faces," I lied, keeping my eyes lowered. "I used to work at an Applebee's in the tri-state area." "Right," he said, losing interest immediately. "Don't steal the towels." For 2 years, I had been invisible. I have fetched coats. I have mopped up vomit. I have listened to Claudia tell her friends how she single-handedly cleaned up the city's nightlife by getting rid of that trashy place down the street. She confessed her crime to me a dozen times, thinking I was just a faceless servant, a non-playable character in her life. "We had to call in so many favors to get that inspector out there," she giggled once, 3 martinis deep, talking to a friend in the bathroom while I restocked the paper towels. But God, it was worth it. Did you see her face? She looked like she was going to cry. Poor thing. Some people just aren't built for business. I was in the stall next to them, holding a roll of toilet paper so tight the cardboard core collapsed in my fist. Not built for business. That phrase echoed in my head every night as I ate ramen in my studio apartment. She was right. I wasn't built for her kind of business. Her business was influence, gossip, and daddy's money. My business was operations, margins, logistics, and vengeance. I started saving every tip. I reconnected with two of my old investors, the ones who had been burned when the Velvet Room went under. The ones who hated Claudia Haynes because he had screwed them on a separate tech deal. They were angry, rich men. The best kind of partners. I pitched them a plan. We don't buy a club, I told them, sitting in a dark diner at 4 a.m. We buy the dirt it sits on. We buy the debt. We buy the distribution rights for the alcohol. We surround them. Then one investor asked, raising an eyebrow, and then I said, I evict them from their own lives. The flashback ended as I stood in the basement of Club Sanctum. The memory of that bathroom stall giggle was what fueled me. It's what kept my hands steady as I initiated the next phase. Because here's the thing about people like Claudia, they think power is static. They think once they have it, they keep it. They don't understand that power is fluid. It flows to whoever is willing to dig the deepest trench. I had been digging for 2 years. My shell company, VMBB Holdings, was a ghost. It has no face, no soul, and most importantly, no name attached to it that anyone would recognize. To the casual observer, it looked like a boring real estate investment trust based out of Delaware. To me, VMBB stood for vengeance is my business, bitch. Okay, that's cheesy, but when you're eating gas station sushi for dinner, you're allowed a little internal melodrama. While Claudia was upstairs complaining about the thread count of the napkins in the VIP lounge, I was finalizing the acquisition of Sanctum's biggest weakness, their liquor license distributor. See, in this state, liquor laws are archaic. Distributors have monopolies over certain territories. If you control the distributor, you control what flows into the glass. And if nothing flows, the party dies. I met my silent partners, let's call them Mr. X and Mr. Y, in the back of a 24-hour laundromat earlier that week. It was the only place loud enough to mask a conversation and weird enough that no one from Claudia's circle would ever be caught dead there. The paperwork for the distributor is signed, Mr. X said, sliding a thick envelope across a folding table. He was wearing a tracksuit, but the watch on his wrist cost more than the building we were sitting in. Now, effectively, you own the exclusive rights to supply Sanctum with everything from vodka to vermouth. And the building? I asked, lighting a slim cigarette. I don't chain smoke Marlboros like a trucker, but I've developed a habit. It gives me something to do with my hands so I don't strangle people. The bank accepted the offer on the mortgage note, Mr. Y added, grinning. He hated Claudia Haynes with the fire of 1,000 suns. Elliot had once publicly corrected Mr. Y's pronunciation of Pinot Noir in front of a date. Petty? Yes. But rich people wars are started over less. Technically, as of this morning, VMBB Holdings owns the debt. You can foreclose, or you can renegotiate. I don't want to foreclose, I said, exhaling a thin stream of smoke. Not yet. I want to be the landlord. You want to charge them rent? No, I smiled, ash flickering. I want to change the locks. Back at the club, the atmosphere was getting rowdy. It was Friday night now. The bridge and tunnel crowd had mixed with the high society types, creating a chaotic energy that usually resulted in broken glass and bad decisions. I was back in uniform, bussing a table near the dance floor. Claudia was there, of course. She was practically a fixture, like the chandelier or the black mold in the basement. She was standing on a sofa, shoes on, which drove me insane, waving a bottle of Ace of Spades. Woo, she screamed. I love this song. The song was about struggle and grinding your way out of poverty. The irony was lost on her. I walked past her table. She looked down at me. Hey, you, waitress. I stopped. Yes, ma'am. Take this away. She gestured to a barely touched fruit platter. The melon is soggy. It's disgusting. It tastes like poverty. I'll handle that, I said, taking the platter. "And bring me another bottle," she commanded. Chop, chop. I walked to the bar. I punched in the order. But then I paused. I pulled out my phone. I logged into the distributor portal, the one I now owned access to. I found the account for Club Sanctum. I flagged it. Asterisk status. Credit hold. Delivery suspended. Asterisk. I confirmed the change. Within 24 hours, the club would run dry. No more Ace of Spades. No more Grey Goose. They would be serving whatever swill was left in the basement until they paid a reconnection fee that I set. And I was going to set it astronomically high. I brought the bottle to Claudia. I poured it into her glass with perfect technique, the bubbles settling just right. Finally, she huffed. "Did you grow the grapes yourself? You're so slow." "Just ensuring quality control, Mrs. Haynes," I said smoothly. "Whatever," she dismissed me. "Go find me a straw. A black one. Clear ones look cheap." I walked away to get the straw. As I passed the manager's office, I saw Gary, the GM, looking frantic. He was on the phone yelling, "What do you mean the delivery is held? We have a private event tomorrow. Elliot Haynes is hosting a post-merger party. We need 50 cases of Dom." I slowed my pace, pretending to adjust a napkin holder. "Credit hold," Gary shrieked. "We paid the bill." "What new owner? What are you talking about?" I suppressed a laugh that would have sounded manic if I let it out. The dominoes were clicking. The seed of power wasn't just returning, it had sprouted, and it was a strangler figure. It was wrapping around the foundation of Club Sanctum, squeezing the life out of it. I grabbed a black straw from the supply bin. I walked back to Claudia. "Here is your straw, ma'am," I said, placing it in her glass. "About time," she muttered, taking a sip. I watched her drink. I watched her enjoy the expensive champagne that her husband's credit card paid for. I watched her oblivious arrogance. "Drink up, Claudia," I thought. "It's the last bottle of the good stuff you're going to see for a long time." I checked the time. My shift ended in 10 minutes. I had a meeting with a locksmith at 4:30 a.m. The walls were about to close in, and I was holding the remote control. Paranoia is a slow-acting poison, and I was administering it in microdoses. Saturday night arrived. The night of Elliot's big post-merger bash. The club was packed. The air was thick with cologne and entitlement. But things were off. It started at the valet. I had accessed the third-party valet software system. It turns out the password was password 123 because security is a myth, and I had made a small adjustment to the VIP list. I was watching from the coat check window, which offered a sliver of a view to the front drive. I saw Elliot's Maserati pull up. He stepped out, tossing the keys to the valet kid, a teenager named Kyle. Kyle checked his tablet. He frowned. He tapped the screen. He checked the license plate. "I'm sorry, Mr. Haynes," I heard Kyle say through the open door. "The system is flagging this vehicle as restricted." "Restricted?" Elliot barked, his face flushing red under the valet lights. "I own this town. What the hell does restricted mean?" "It says, repeated non-payment of parking violations and risk of towing," Kyle read, looking terrified. "That's absurd." Elliot screamed. "Take the damn car." "I can't, sir. The system won't print a ticket. If I take it, the insurance won't cover it." Elliot Haynes, the billionaire tech mogul, had to park his own Maserati. He had to drive it 3 blocks away to a public garage and walk back in the slush. When he finally stormed into the lobby, his Italian loafers were stained with road salt. I was there, holding a towel. "Rough night, sir?" I asked, my face a mask of concern. He snatched the towel from me without a word, wiping his shoes furiously. "Incompetence," he muttered. "Surrounded by incompetence." "It must be a glitch," I offered helpfully. "Computers are tricky." He glared at me, then stormed inside. Phase 2, the algorithm. The club used a digital tipping system that prioritized service to tables that tipped well. It was an internal metric on the waitstaff's iPads. I had tweaked the code for tonight. Table 1, the Haynes permanent table, was flagged as non-priority/low tipper. This meant that every time Claudia ordered a drink, her request went to the bottom of the queue on the bartender's screen. I watched from the shadows as Claudia waved her empty glass. 10 minutes passed. 15. She stood up, waving her arms. Hello? Hello? She shrieked. Is everyone blind? Sarah, the waitress, walked right past her to serve a table of tourists who had ordered Bud Lights. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Haynes, Sarah said, looking genuinely confused at her iPad. Your order isn't popping up. The system keeps pushing it back. Maybe the Wi-Fi is bad in this corner. Bad Wi-Fi? We are in the VIP section. Fix it. I'm trying. Sarah lied. I had tipped Sarah $100 cash earlier and told her, if the system glitches tonight, just roll with it. Don't override it. Finally, Phase 3, the physical space. Elliot loved his specific corner booth. It was elevated, secluded, and offered a view of the entire club. It was his throne. But earlier that afternoon, I had placed a maintenance-required order for that specific booth. I had cited structural instability in the subfloor. Elliot marched up to his throne. He found it cordoned off with yellow caution tape. Gary, the manager, was wringing his hands. Mr. Haynes, I'm so sorry. The floor, it's sagging. We can't let you sit there. Liability. Where am I supposed to sit? Elliot demanded, gesturing to the crowded club. We have a nice table near the kitchen, Gary suggested weakly. Elliot's face went purple. Claudia looked like she had swallowed a lemon. This is unacceptable, she screamed. This is our night. I know, Gary stammered. It's just, the building is old. Things are falling apart. I walked by with a tray of clean glasses. I paused just long enough to catch Elliot's eye. Can I get you folks some folding chairs? I asked innocently. Get away from me, Elliot hissed. They ended up standing. The king and queen of the city, standing awkwardly near the bar, jostled by people who had paid a $20 cover charge. Claudia's feet hurt in her heels. Elliot was sweating in his coat because he refused to check it. He didn't trust me anymore. Smart man. I moved through the club like a phantom. I knew every weak beam, every hidden mic, every wire. I was the ghost in their machine, and I was haunting them in real time. I went to the break room and checked my phone. A message from the lawyer. Asterisk deed recorded. Liquor license transfer complete. You are legally the owner of the property known as 440 West Street. The operating company is now your tenant, and they are in default. Asterisk. I smiled. It wasn't a shark smile this time. It was a wolf smile. I walked back out onto the floor. Claudia was arguing with the bartender about the lack of Dom Perignon. Remember the delivery hold? We only have Moat. The bartender shrugged. I don't drink peasant champagne. Claudia yelled. I leaned against a pillar, watching. The walls were closing in. The ceiling was lowering. They were too busy shouting at the help to notice that the building didn't belong to them anymore. I had one more shift. One more night. And then, the paperclip. There is a specific kind of silence that happens when a contract is signed. It's not the quiet of a library or an empty church. It's a heavy, vacuum-sealed silence that drowns out the noise of the rest of the world. It's the sound of a guillotine blade hanging suspended at the very top of its arc, holding its breath before the drop. Sunday morning, 9 a.m. The city was still nursing a hangover, gray and drizzly, but inside my lawyer's office, the air was crisp and smelled of expensive mahogany polish. I was staring at a stack of documents thick enough to stop a hollow-point bullet. This is it, Jessica said. She was my attorney, a woman who wore suits sharper than her name and possessed a smile that could strip paint. She tapped the paper with a manicured nail. Once you sign this, Nightlife Ventures is notified that their lease is terminated due to violation of the good moral character clause in the master agreement. Ironically, they added that clause 10 years ago to keep out strip clubs. Now, it's the noose they're hanging themselves with. She slid a second document across the glass desk. And the liquor license transfer is approved. VMDB Holdings now holds the exclusive rights to serve alcohol at the premises. Club Sanctum is legally dry as of. She checked her Cartier watch, noon today. Unless they negotiate with the new owner. Which is you. I picked up the pen. It was a cheap, plastic Bic pen I'd pulled from my purse. I didn't need a Mont Blanc to sign their death warrant. The ink flowed smoothly, turning Vanessa M. Bishop into a weapon. Congratulations, Jessica said, leaning back in her leather chair. You bought a zoo. No, I said, capping the pen and standing up. The fatigue of the last 2 years seemed to evaporate, replaced by a cold, electric hum in my veins. I bought a slaughterhouse. I went to work that night for my final shift. It felt surreal, like walking through a dream where you know you can fly but haven't taken off yet. I walked through the service entrance, swiping my key card, a card I would soon be deactivating. I put on my uniform in the locker room. The black pants, the polo shirt that smelled like polyester and shame. I looked at myself in the locker mirror. The mousy brown hair, the lack of makeup, the invisibility cloak I had woven for myself. "Showtime, sweetie," I whispered to the reflection. I reached into my bag and pulled out a tube of lipstick. Ruby Woo. It was the shade I used to wear every single night at the Velvet Room. I hadn't worn it since the day the health inspector shut me down. I applied it slowly. It looked jarring against the drab uniform, a slash of war paint, a crimson warning signal. When I walked out onto the floor, the staff meeting was already in full swing. Gary, the general manager, looked like he was vibrating with anxiety. He was wiping sweat from his bald head with a cocktail napkin. "Okay, everyone, listen up," Gary stammered, his voice cracking. "We have a crisis. A major crisis. The liquor distributor has cut us off completely. We are running on existing inventory only. We need to push the high-margin cocktails to get rid of the cheap stuff in the rail. No pouring the top shelf unless they pay double." He looked around wildly. "And corporate says there's some legal issue with the building ownership. I don't know the details, but if anyone asks, we are not closing. It's just a paperwork glitch." He locked eyes with me. "Vanessa, make sure the coat check is moving fast. We need turnover. Get them in, get them out." "You got it, Gary," I said. My voice was different. Deeper. Speed is my middle name. Mike, the head bouncer, caught my eye. I had pulled Mike aside 10 minutes earlier, before the doors opened. I showed him the paperwork. I showed him the signature. I told him exactly what was going to happen. Mike hated Claudia Haynes. She had once poured a vodka tonic on his shoes because he didn't open the velvet rope fast enough. So when she gives the order, Mike had asked, a slow grin spreading across his face, "What do I do?" "You take orders from the owner," I said. "And that's me." "Copy that, boss," Mike had said. And that brought us to the moment. The doors opened. The crowd flooded in. It was Sunday industry night. The crowd was cooler, younger, more cynical, bartenders, DJs, promoters. But inevitably, like moths to a dying flame, they arrived. Claudia and Elliot Haynes. They had no homes to go to, apparently. Their mansion was just a place to store their ego. The club was where they fed it. Claudia looked furious. Her hair was pulled back so tight it was pulling her face into a permanent sneer. She marched up to the counter. She didn't even say hello. She didn't look at me. She just unhooked her fur, a massive silver fox coat this time, and threw it. She put actual force into it. It wasn't a toss, it was a pitch. The heavy fur bundle hit me square in the face. The metal clasp scratched my cheek hard. A sharp sting registered, and I felt a tiny drop of warm blood well up. "Oops," Claudia said, deadpan. She was already looking at her phone. "Slippery fingers. Hang it up. And don't steal anything from the pockets like you usually do." I stood there. The fur was on the counter, a heap of dead animal and expensive perfume. My cheek stung. In the past, I would have apologized. I would have bowed my head. I would have suppressed the rage until it became a tumor in my gut. But today I owned the counter. I owned the floor she was standing on. I owned the air conditioning unit blowing on her fake tan. I didn't pick up the coat. I looked at it. Then I looked at her. "Pick it up," she snapped, finally glancing at me. "I have a table waiting." "No," I said. The word hung in the air. It was a small word, just 2 letters, but it landed like a grenade in a library. "Excuse me." Claudia laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. "Did you just say no?" I said no, I repeated. I reached up and touched my cheek, pulling my finger away to inspect the smear of red blood. It matched my lipstick. "Are you on drugs?" she asked, looking around for an audience. Gary, get over here. The coat girl is malfunctioning." Gary rushed over, looking like he was about to cry. What is it now?" She refused to check my coat. Claudia pointed a manicured talon at me. And she's bleeding. It's unsanitary. Get rid of her. Gary looked at me, pleading with his eyes. Vanessa, just hang up the coat. Please. I can't deal with this tonight. I looked at Gary. He was a good man, mostly. Just weak. A survivor who picked the wrong lifeboat. I can't, Gary, I said, calm as a frozen lake. Why not? Because, I said, leaning forward, my voice dropping to a whisper that only they could hear. I don't work for you anymore. You quit? Gary asked, confused. Not exactly, I said. I looked past them. In the background, near the VIP stairs, I saw one of my silent partners, Mr. X. He was leaning against the railing, sipping a soda. He caught my eye and nodded. It was time. I'm not quitting, I said to Claudia, my eyes locking onto hers. I'm promoting myself. You're delusional, Claudia spat. Pick up the coat or I will have you dragged out by security. She waved frantically at the door. Security. Get over here. Mike, the bouncer, walked over. He was 6'4" and built like a vending machine. He looked at Claudia. Then he looked at me. Mike, throw her out, Claudia commanded. Mike crossed his massive arms over his chest. I can't do that, Mrs. Haynes. Why the hell not? Because, Mike said, staring at the floor to hide his smile, she signs my checks now. Claudia froze. What? I reached under the counter and pulled out a single paperclip. I used it to attach a small, folded piece of paper to the fur coat that was still lying on the counter. I think you dropped this, I said. What is that? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. It's a receipt, I lied. Actually, no. It's a notice. I checked the time. 11:59 p.m., part 6 is over, I whispered to myself. What are you mumbling? Claudia demanded. Just counting down, I said. Midnight. The witching hour. I smiled. The blood on my cheek felt like war paint. Get ready, Claudia. The floor is about to get very, very slippery. The music cut out. The DJ, sensing the shift in atmospheric pressure or maybe just seeing Mike the bouncer staring him down, had killed the track. The club went silent, save for the hum of the refrigerators and the sound of Claudia Haynes trying to process the concept of consequences. You on the coat check? Claudia scoffed, a desperate, confused laugh bubbling up. What did you do? Buy the franchise? That's adorable. Really. A true entrepreneur. She turned to the crowd, arms wide. Everyone look. The coat check girl thinks she's a business owner. Let's give her a round of applause for her little lemonade stand. A few people chuckled nervously. Most just stared. People in nightlife smell blood faster than sharks. They knew this wasn't a joke. The energy in the room had shifted from party to execution. I don't own the coat check, Claudia, I said. My voice was projected from the diaphragm, the way I used to speak when I ran the morning meetings at the Velvet Room. No more mumbles. No more submission. I stepped out from behind the counter. I pushed open the swinging door and walked onto the main floor. I own the door you walked through, I said, taking a step toward her. I own the floor you're standing on. I own the liquor license for the vodka you're demanding. I own the mortgage note on this building. I stopped 3 feet from her. I was wearing my cheap uniform and my bright red lipstick, and I felt 10 feet tall. I am the landlord. I am the bank. And I am the management. Claudia stared at me. Her face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions, confusion, disbelief, and finally, pure, unadulterated terror. Elliot, she shrieked, spinning around to find her husband. Elliot, do something. She's lying. She's crazy. Elliot Haynes pushed through the crowd. He looked sweaty. He looked like a man who had just realized why his valet ticket was declined. What is the meaning of this? Elliot demanded, trying to muster his CEO voice. Who are you? The woman whose business you helped destroy, I said. Vanessa Bishop. The Velvet Room. Ring a bell. Elliot's eyes widened. Recognition flickered. You're the one with the values. I finished for him. Yes. And it turns out my values include paying my debts. And collecting yours. I pointed to the wall behind the main bar. I had instructed the bartender to unveil it at exactly midnight. With a dramatic yank, the bartender pulled a cord. The canvas covering the large mirror fell away. Written in ruby woo lipstick, in letters 2 feet tall, were 3 words: check your access. Below it, a new digital projection beamed onto the wall, bright and undeniable. Private property. New owner, VMBB Holdings, ****. The room gasped. Phones were out. Flashbulbs were popping. This was going on TikTok Live. This was the content they lived for. This is illegal. Elliot sputtered, his face turning a blotchy purple. I have a lease. I have a contract with Nightlife Ventures. You had a contract, I corrected. They defaulted. I bought the debt. And as the new owner, I'm exercising my right to terminate services for any patron who violates the code of conduct. I turned my gaze back to Claudia. Code of conduct violation number 1, I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel. Abuse of staff. I looked down at the silver fox fur coat, still lying on the dirty floor. It looked like roadkill now. Pick it up, I said to Claudia. What? She whispered. Pick it up. I can't, she stammered. I'm a guest. Not anymore, I said. Now you're just a trespasser with bad manners. Claudia looked at Elliot. Elliot looked at his shoes. He wasn't going to save her. He was calculating the PR fallout. He was already distancing himself. Claudia looked at the crowd. They were filming her, mocking her. The queen was naked. Slowly, painfully, Claudia Haynes bent down. Her knees popped. Her dress strained. She reached out and grabbed the fur coat from the floor. Dust bunnies and grime clung to the expensive pelt. She stood up, clutching the dirty coat to her chest, her face a mask of humiliation. Happy, she hissed, tears welling up in her eyes. You made your point. We're leaving. Leaving implies you have a choice, I said. I signaled Mike. Escort them out. And Mike. Yeah, boss. Check their pockets, I said, throwing her own words back at her like a brick. Make sure they didn't steal anything. The crowd erupted. Laughter. Cheers. It was brutal. It was savage. It was justice. You can't touch me. Claudia screamed as Mike stepped forward. Do you know who I am? We know exactly who you are, Mrs. Haynes, I said, my voice dropping to a cool, professional register. That's why you're banned. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a sealed white envelope. I slapped it into Elliot's hand. What is this? He asked, looking at it like it was radioactive. A formal notice of trespass, I explained. And a dossier of harassment complaints filed by the staff over the last 24 months. Dates, times, witnesses. Including the time Claudia threw a hot coffee at the valet. We have the footage. Elliot paled. He knew what that meant. Lawsuits. Settlements. PR nightmares. His family values brand was about to take a hit that no amount of spin could fix. We can settle this, Elliot started, his voice shaking. Vanessa. Miss Bishop. Let's go to the office. Let's talk numbers. I don't need your numbers, Elliot, I said. I have my own. You're making a mistake, he threatened, but it was weak. You need people like us. We're the economy of the city. No, I said, stepping closer, smelling the fear coming off him. It smelled like sweat and expensive dry cleaning. You're the parasites. The economy is the people serving your drinks, parking your cars, and fixing your AC. And we're tired of you. I turned to Claudia. She was shaking, clutching her dirty coat. Claudia Haynes, I said formally. Your membership is revoked. Effective immediately. Permanent ban. Global. If I buy a lemonade stand in the future, you're banned from there, too. Get them out. I nodded to Mike. Mike and 2 other bouncers, big guys who had been waiting for this day for years, stepped in. They didn't touch them roughly. They just created a wall of muscle. This way, folks, Mike said cheerfully. They were herded toward the door. Not the VIP exit. The front door. The one with the draft. As they passed the threshold, Claudia turned back one last time. Her mascara was running. She looked small. You're just a coat check girl, she screamed, her voice cracking. And you, I called back, are outside. The heavy oak door slammed shut. Silence returned to the room for a beat. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the whole room. I didn't bow. I wasn't a performer. I turned to the DJ. Hit it. The music blasted back on. Louder this time. The bass rattled the bottles on the shelf. My bottles. I walked behind the bar. I picked up a bottle of Grey Goose, one of the last ones left before the new stock arrived. Pour a shot for the house, I yelled. On the owner. The roar was deafening. I didn't stay for the party. I walked up the stairs to the VIP balcony. My balcony. I looked down at the sea of people. I saw Sarah laughing with a tray of drinks. I saw Gary looking relieved, loosening his tie. I saw the ecosystem healing itself. I sat down in the booth, the one I had marked with caution tape earlier. I ripped the tape off. I sat down on the leather. I pulled out my phone and checked the Reddit thread where I had been documenting this whole saga anonymously. Update, she's gone, I typed. And I didn't even have to use the sriracha. I closed my eyes and leaned back. My feet hurt. My cheap, non-slip shoes were pinching my toes. But for the first time in 2 years, I didn't care. I wasn't the help. I wasn't the victim. I was the house. And the house always wins. So, to answer your question, yes. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Preferably in a VIP lounge you just bought from under your enemy's feet. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a club to run. And a new rule to post on the door. Be nice or get out. Check your access, sweetie.